Hey everyone, this is PrinceBrightstar and welcome back to Phantasy Star Online 2? Wait a minute, what am I doing on the Alpha ship? How did I get here? Maybe this isn't Phantasy Star Online 2, but rather VRChat. Now, if you've never heard of VRChat before, you might not have a VR headset, but that doesn't matter because it has a desktop client as well. But what does that have to do with the Alpha ship? So as it turns out, creators are able to import assets into VRChat as a world, and that's basically how this place came to be. Now this is impressive enough, but the reason we're here today is a member of my Discord server recently has been working on trying to port assets from the original Phantasy Star Online into VRChat. I asked if they could take me on a tour, and they agreed. Everyone, say hello to Arawen.
Hello.
Thank you for taking the time to show me what we're going to see today. This is really amazing stuff. So, before we get started, I just want to ask a few questions about how all this got started. So, what got you interested in doing 3D modeling?
Honestly, I just now got into it because I really wanted to play PSO in VR, and there wasn't much PSO VR content, so I decided to do it myself.
Got ya. And what caused you to use the VRChat engine above other alternatives?
Well, VRChat is a really easily accessible VR platform with user-made content, and it's really easy to learn and learn how to add content to VRChat.
I see. And from what I understand, you're going to be showing me not just only the areas you've worked on, but also some of the tidbits and secrets you've found, along with some of the enemies you've been working on?
Oh, yes.
Okay, well, why don't we start over in Forest 2 and we'll take it from there.
Okay. This is Forest 2. The ferns are animated. The only thing that I've still got to do is put all the objects and the gates on the map, the enemy spawns and the particle effects and the skybox. But the whole map is here.
Gotcha. And yeah, definitely one of the nice things about VRChat is basically being able to just look around. I mean, in the past, within the game, of course, we could only look at the camera angles that were available.
Oh, yes. And also, the game would also cull beyond a certain point, and here you can actually look all the way across the map. There's no range limitation.
Yep, and for those that are unfamiliar, culling is basically a technique of unloading distant objects so that it's not overloading the CPU and memory. So let's take a look around. And is the collision like all the same as it was in the game, or actually I'm noticing I'm able to walk up the walls here.
Yes, I have not put up any invisible walls, so you can walk everywhere. Everything that's textured is collidable, so you can climb everything.
Cool. Yeah, so as we can see here, this is basically where the edge of the world is. What happens if you drop out?
It will, you'll hit a height limit, and then you'll respawn.
Gotcha. Let me try that out. Yep, and that puts me right back down here again.
Also, the water pools have no bottoms, so the same thing will happen if you jump into the water.
Gotcha. Let's take a look at the central dome. And yeah, I'm just noticing here, yeah, there would be 2 doors here, and then down there you'd have like 6 to 9 boxes that you could break open depending upon the mode that you're in.
Yes.
Now this over here, this was a platform that was kind of important depending upon what you were doing. Like if you were in I think it was the AOL Cup on Blueburst, where a bridge would raise after a certain amount of time. Is that something that's possible to get implemented, or?
Yes, The bridge that raises up is actually a separate object, and it has its own animation. I have the file for it, but when I add the objects to the map, I will add that.
Okay, cool. And then the other thing I'm noticing here is typically this area, it's raining. So I guess that's something else that you're looking to implement then.
Yes, when I put the skybox in, I'm going to put rain clouds, and then I'm going to add rain particle effects falling down.
Gotcha. Okay, let's take a look over here. If I remember correctly, this was one of the 3 spawn locations where you could find the tower that you need to touch in order to actually open up the ruins.
Yes. We have all the towers. They're separate objects, so when I put the objects on the map, I can put that there too.
Cool. And for anybody that's confused, if I remember correctly, Arawen, you were saying that your character was Rena from Star Ocean Second Story?
Yes.
Yeah, I had played a little bit of that, but didn't get too far into it.
Yes, my friend Silent made this avatar, and so I'm using Silent's avatar, and they also added a red sword to the avatar.
Now that is pretty cool. And so I guess that's one of the items that people will be using to fight with, or is that going to just be per avatar then?
I'm not sure. This is a PSO2 version of Red Saber, so I'm still not sure if I want to use the original PSO Red Saber that I have from the PSO version 2 files, or if I'm going to go ahead and use the models from PSO2 that we also have.
Gotcha. Alright, let's make our way towards the actual central dome now, then. Yep, this was the area where the Endless Nightmare stuff happened, and down there, I believe, was where you found the head of Lionel from the download quest Letter from Lionel.
Yes.
It's funny, looking at the textures on the walls. I mean, way back then, that was fine because most people didn't have better than like a compositor or an S-Video hookup to their televisions. I know the Dreamcast was RGB compatible, but actually seeing the textures now and kind of really how low res they were, it's very interesting.
Now, we can upscale the textures. I can show you some PSO maps later where we've given them a texture upscaling treatment, and it looks much better quality.
Interesting. I might have to have you look into something then later on. But let's continue towards the dome. So here we've got the area where the boss teleporter would be, and then inside here is the door to the inside of the dome.
Yes.
And now, what was it that you were telling me about the where you thought this dome went?
So I have a theory that the cave that the dragon is in is not actually inside the central dome, but it's actually far underneath it. Because to me, it seems like as you adventure through the caves, you're coming closer to the surface through each installment of the caves. And by the time you're in Cave 3, it's more of a developed area. So going by my theory, I think that Cave 3 is the actual interior of the central dome.
And I can kind of see how that works, given that the first cave areas that you end up in is more like a volcano than anything else.
Yes. Also, the first message that you find from Rico inside the caves, Rico mentions that she found an entrance to the cave. So it seems for Rico, at least, it was not as easy as jumping a teleporter straight from the front of the Central Dome to get there.
That would make sense. I mean, if this Central Dome had been sealed in some way to prevent people from getting inside, then yeah, she would have had to have found another way in.
Also, this is something that you don't really notice in the original game because you don't have the ability to get really up close like you can in VR. But if you get really close to this door, you can notice that it's warped, like something was on the inside bending the metal outward.
Oh yeah, I definitely see that now here. It's, yeah, even with not using VR, I can definitely see the indents that it looked like something was banging from the inside, pushing the metal out.
Yes.
Gotcha. So, why don't we go ahead and take a look at the dragon boss then?
Okay. Might as well make the portal where the dragon teleporter is.
Makes sense. So I'm noticing that there are 2 dragons in here.
Yes, I put 2 dragons into this map so that I could test the scale. This is still a very much in development map. I was testing the scale and the lighting. I wanted to have 1 dragon on the ground and 1 dragon in the air so that I could check how the scale looked. And the way I test the scale, I use an avatar called Ybot, which is a pretty standard sized default avatar in VRChat. And what I do is I consider Ybot's height the same height as the default Humar Ash in PSO. And I walk Ash next to an object in PSO and check how high he is compared to the object, and then I try to make the size match up with Ybot in VRChat. And that's how I scale my maps.
Gotcha. Yeah, scale is something that's really important when you're doing something like this. Whenever you're trying to figure out how big something is in a VR space, it's always important that you have some kind of a ruler, whether that be something that you figure out through pixel measurements or through like a character's canon height.
Yes. So the default Humar is about head height with the dragon's knees. And that's what I've done here. I've scaled the dragon to where his knee is about the same size as Ybot's head.
And I'm just looking around. I'm noticing that there is a lot of aliasing on like the shadows and such here.
Yes, I was testing a lot of lighting in this room because the default model, the rocks are too white, and I was trying to get the red tint with the lighting, and I honestly messed it up, so I'm probably going to redo it. But PSO had vertex lighting with no shadows, so I think I might go back to the drawing board with the lighting in this room and try to go more accurate to PSO. I did like the idea of having more realistic shadows, but now that I've done given these dragon shadows, I think the shadows take up too much of the room.
Yeah, the one that's flying there goes all the way onto the wall. I mean, that wingspan is just huge.
Yes.
And then, plus the other question is kind of like, where's the light source in here?
Yeah, it's it doesn't make sense to have shadows like that in here. I mean, it is volcanic, but there's not really any open lava pools, at least until the dragon starts making them.
Exactly. Once he crashes into the ground and then comes back up.
Yeah.
Now, are you doing the same stuff with Sill Dragon, or is that something that you're planning to work on?
Yeah, I'm doing it with... I've got the ultimate models as well, so I'm planning on making a ultimate variant of the forest area in VRChat once I figure everything out for the normal areas.
I was always kind of interested what the area was like around where the Sill Dragon is, because that's like... It's like up in the frozen wastes or something like that, and it's just an open, vast area there.
Yeah. Yeah, the ultimate variant seemed a little bit weird to me. It's questionable canon, because it seems like the hunters investigating the Central Dome suddenly decided to take a detour to North Pole for some random reason.
Yeah, a lot of Ultimate is kind of questionable. I mean, there was theories way back in the day that maybe normal to very hard was just sort of like this training exercise, and then Ultimate was the real deal.
Yeah. But then in Ultimate, you're on the North Pole fighting a dragon when... Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yep.
But Ultimate Caves made a little bit more sense with the... what were they called? The ultimate version of the evil sharks. The Volmers, I think.
Yeah, they're not so shark-like.
Yeah, the Volmers looked like... Yeah, they looked like mutated Boomas, which matched up with the messages that you would find from Rico about the mutating creatures.
Exactly. Yep, and over here we can see what I thought for a long time was just an elevator down. I am curious, though. It doesn't seem like there's any damage on this side of the door, though.
No, there's no damage on this side of the door. This is actually a very intact structure. It doesn't look damaged at all. And one of the reasons that I started to think that this cave is actually outside of the Central Dome is because the sloped wall there looks like the backside of one of the Central Dome's tower structures.
Yep, I actually noticed more the bottom of the... where it kind of looks like circuitry down there.
Yes.
And also, I think this looks similar to the Trimate symbol on the wall here.
Yes, but if you know the PSO alphanumerical system, that's just their version of number 3.
Yes, you're right. That is true. Okay, so why don't we take a look at the first forest now?
Okay.
And this looks familiar. This looks like the original trailer, the original announcement trailer for Phantasy Star Online.
I was experimenting with world triggers, and this was one of my experiments. I tried to make an intro to the map where it would play a portion of the original PSO trailer before teleporting the player into the actual map. And at this point, we were supposed to teleport, but I messed up the trigger, so you have to actually hit the respawn button.
Gotcha. Here we are.
And the trees are messed up because I messed up the textures. I need to update this map. But it has a Pioneer 2 in the sky and the Central Dome in the background.
That it does, and I see it has some sparklies on it. Is that the original texture, or are we looking at something different here?
This is all of the sparkles, and the background is all ripped from Phantasy Star Universe's version of the forest.
Gotcha. So not the original Phantasy Star Online, but rather the VR recreation that basically the Guardians would go through instead.
Yes. But we're in VR now, and in PSO you couldn't look up. So now that we're in VR, I decided to put something interesting for you to look up at.
That makes sense. Although I do recall it also being there in the in Phantasy Star universe, so...
Yes, it was in Phantasy Star Universe.
Alright, cool. So, let's take a look around here, then. So I recall that this was sort of the introductory area that you would go through if you did battle training first, which was the quest with Kirik.
Yes. You would start in this corner this way. And you would leave down this path, and there will be a laser barrier here that you would walk through to encounter the first enemies.
And then you were saying in the next room there was something about the stream you wanted to show me?
Oh, yes. So this water, I double checked with the original PSO, and this is the direction that the water flows. But now that we're in VRChat, we can actually come up to this wall and see that the stream is flowing together in an odd way.
Oh wow, yeah, it's all coming together. It's not headed in one direction here.
Yeah. Someone told me that they think that the waterfall room in the caves is directly below us, and that's where all the water is going. But the waterfall room has sunlight shining in, and I don't see how that could be the case here.
Yeah, I would agree on that one. Plus, the hole seems a little small as well for that.
Yes.
And let's take a look up here. Oh, there's nothing here.
Yeah. This is 2000 game design right here. If you don't see it, it doesn't need to be made.
It makes sense. Memory limitations and all that sort of stuff back then.
Yeah. Now modern game designers overdevelop, and you can go out of the map and find all kinds of detailed stuff beyond where the player can normally see. But they didn't have the that would be a waste of resources in old games.
Exactly. And then over here, I guess we can get another view of the central dome. Now that's interesting. So I guess that box out there is the introductory scene we went through?
Yes, that's the introductory scene, and actually I put it that far out because there's a bubble out there that's for the audio in that room, and it keeps it from overlapping with this map here, because every time a new player joins, it will replay for the new player. So in order to avoid hearing the audio of the video in the map, I put it that far out and put a bubble for the audio to play in.
Makes sense. Now, the area around here, is this all just skybox, or is this actually 3D modeling going on here?
It's not a real skybox, but it's not 3D either. It's basically a big sphere with a texture on it. But if you have a flying avatar, it takes a while, but you can actually fly out through it. But it's 2D.
Gotcha. So nothing to really land on then.
No. In fact, the Pioneer 2 up there, you can fly up behind it before you get to the other textures. And the Pioneer 2 is essentially a cardboard cutout.
I mean, even from here, you can kind of tell it is.
Yeah, when I get an actual skybox into this map, I'm going to make the clouds drift in front of it, and it will be less visible. It will blend in better and look more like it's naturally in the sky. So these Boomas here, there's the red orbs are his aggro zone. And if you look down at your chest, you'll see a green orb and a yellow orb on your own character's chest. The green orb is what the Booma is looking for. Once it aggroes on you, that's what it will chase. And the yellow orb is what it's trying to attack. Now, if I can put those orbs in different locations. For instance, on a Savage Wolf, when I get around to making it, I would, instead of putting the green orb centered on the player, I would put the green orb out away from the player and make it orbit around the player. And the Savage Wolf would try to follow that, and that's how I would replicate the circular movement that Savage Wolves do. And then the yellow orb would still be on the player, so when the Savage Wolf actually attacks, it would turn and attack at the yellow orb.
Gotcha. If I remember correctly, Savage and Barbarous Wolves wouldn't attack unless it was facing the back of the character.
Yes, I'm still trying to figure out how to replicate that in VRChat. It's pretty difficult to figure out that behavior, but I'll give it a try. But anyways, the red orbs are his aggro. He aggroes, I think, 5 times in front, and then one on in his general area, so he can detect things that are standing right behind him as well. When I actually get him into the forest, though, I'm going to take those off of him and put them in the center of the rooms, so that he'll detect if people walk into the room instead of him detecting off of his visual range.
Gotcha.
And that will be more like the original game. A recent addition, I added a beam saber, and this is a bow that was a default asset, but yeah, the beam saber, I'm still trying to debug something on the beam saber. You can see the saber, right? When you picked it up, it actually has a beam. Okay. If you click it, the beam will charge. It won't make a sound because I haven't put sound on it, but it should become much brighter than normal and pulsate a little bit. And that's a charged attack. People on desktop can't really swing swords very well. But the bug that I have here that I'm still trying to figure out is that when I pick it up, you can't see the beam sword. Like, you can only see the handle. So other players can't see the beam of the saber right now, and I'm still trying to figure out how I can fix that. Go shoot the Booma once, and then stand still and let it attack you.
All right.
It should aggro on you if you get a hit on it. Yep, here it comes. Alright, so as you can see, he'll attack only once and then stand still. And the reason for that is he only attacks if you enter his attack range, but as soon as you're in the attack range, his attacks stop because the way the VRChat triggers work is they only trigger upon entering or leaving a collider. In order to get around that, I have to make the collider move during his attack animation so that it moves off of the target and then back onto the target by the end of the animation. And if I do that, then he should be able to continuously attack a stationary target. If he's aggroed on multiple people, he'll swap targets between the two and frequently attack because he's always changing targets.
And something else I'm noticing here is, I guess this is part of the engine, that the typical knockback that you get from a hit just isn't happening.
Well, I haven't put collision on the Booma itself. There is a type of collision that I can put on him that I am planning on putting on him that will actually allow him to push around players.
And then I guess just in general, I guess you were talking about how stats really don't really work for VR chat that well. Is that correct?
That's correct. There isn't really a random number generator system in VRChat. Um, you can create logic where there's a random chance of something happening, but nothing to the point of having a large range of numbers to be randomly selected. That's a little out of the question. So I can make some static damage values and then have it choose between like 8 different damage values for one type of collider.
Gotcha. And so I guess really it would just be sort of a hit or a miss kind of thing then.
Yeah. Um, Now what I can do is I can put multiple colliders on one weapon on different layers so that when you swing, one swing would actually hit the opponent multiple times, and you can increase damage on a weapon that way. Um, but doing that too much would cause lag because the amount of calculations that it would have to do for every swing.
So like, if you were to put like 10 different layers on, and I guess put it at different points of the weapon, that yeah, that would just cause too much lag.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of it, you just have to think out of the box and find ways to do what you want. The reason they don't allow typical Unity scripting is because people can make malicious scripts, and they don't want people doing that on public servers because it's a security and safety issue.
Of course.
I guess I can show you what happens if you die. There we go. My character kind of ragdolls, and then I respawn, and then he's chasing me again.
Yep, at least until you get out of his range.
So this red orb is the health. That's the default asset that I built this off of a Diablo or Dungeons and Dragons themed prefab asset that I converted it into PSO, and that's why it's got that fancy red health orb. I'm going to replace it with a Dreamcast style heads up display, so it'll look like the Dreamcast health and TP bar eventually. I'm going to kill the Booma now. There we go. And he should disappear in about 30 seconds.
And of course, it drops its blood.
Yeah, I haven't changed the blood. That's definitely not PSO blood. And as you can see, now that he despawned, if you look down, the orbs that were on your character have gone missing.
Yep.
And that's because they are part of the monster's data, and they can only be attached to a player on load-in. So even if I did respawn the Booma, the tracking objects will not be attached to your character again. And that's a problem because if I do respawn the Booma, he won't be able to track us anymore. And in order to get around that, I have to make one Booma spawn, or one Booma at the start invisible. I have to disable everything on him except for his tracking system. And then I can spawn clones of that Booma from the same prefab that share the same tracking system as he does. And all the clones, you can kill them as much as you want, and the tracking system will never go away as long as the original is still alive. So I just basically have to make a Booma that's in a safe state where no one can kill it, and then I can make as many Boomas as I want that people can kill without worrying about anything losing tracking.
I think the way the devs do it is they put it underground where you can't get to it.
Yeah.
But no, this is really cool, real impressive, and I'm looking forward to kind of what running through here, being able to fight Boomas in VRChat is actually going to be like.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Well, I want to thank you, Arawen, for taking the time to show me around the effort you and your group are making towards porting the maps in. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Just look forward to my completed forest area eventually. Hopefully I can get it done by the end of this month. I really am planning on making a map where you're capable of doing an entire forest run from the beginning all the way to the dragon, and possibly be able to repeat it in the same instance over and over again and actually hunt for rare items. That's the goal.
Cool, and I look forward to being able to make one of those runs myself. So thank you for joining me today. If you've enjoyed today's content, please do make sure to subscribe and click the bell to be notified whenever I do go live, or whenever I put out a new video. In addition to that, I also have a Discord. Link to that is in the description below. Thank you for joining me today. This is PrinceBrightstar signing off. I'll catch you next time.